We tend to think of election crackdowns as things that happen in the shadows, right? Away from cameras. But this week in Uganda, we saw something completely different, a crackdown happening in broad daylight,
Yeah.
right in front of the international press, until, that is, those cameras were taken away by force.
It creates this real clash of images in your head. You see ballot boxes and voting lines, all the things that look like a democracy. And then right next to it, you see scenes that look like they're from a war zone. And right in the middle of that, a Sky News team gets arrested, not for, breaking some law, but just for witnessing it, for doing their job.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're doing a deep dive into the absolute turmoil following the election in Uganda. We've got a whole stack of reports here, breaking news about the expulsion of that Sky News team, specifically their African correspondent, Yusra Elbagir. We also have a really dense report called the 2026 Ugandan Electoral Crackdown and statements from the opposition, the National Unity Platform.
And our goal today isn't just to report that a journalist was arrested. I mean, that's the headline, but we need to understand the mechanics behind it. The arrest of Yusra Elbagir is sort of the final act. The real story is what led up to that moment and what it means now that she's been, put on a plane. It's really about how a state tries to grab control of a story when it's slipping away from them.
Okay, so let's start right there with the incident that got everyone's attention. The arrest itself. This wasn't some covert operation, a journalist sneaking onto a military base or anything like that.
Not at all, and that's what makes it so brazen. Yusra Elbagir and her crew were out on the streets covering the election's aftermath. And here's a key detail. They were wearing full protective gear. Bulletproof vests, helmets, everything clearly marked press.
Which tells you they knew what they were walking into.
Yeah.
You don't wear a flak jacket to cover a peaceful victory speech.
Exactly. They were prepared for conflict. And according to these reports, that's what they found. They weren't arrested for filming people voting. They were arrested because they aimed their cameras directly at police and military forces who were, at that moment, beating up supporters of Bobi Wine, the opposition leader.
I want to focus on that phrase the source uses, caught on camera. That implies the footage is out there. Or at least it was.
That is the clear implication, yes. They were documenting state-sanctioned violence against civilians. And in the logic of a crackdown, the second you do that, you stop being an observer. You become a threat. The moment that lens captures a baton hitting a person, the camera itself becomes part of the problem for the regime.
And the reaction was just immediate.
Yeah.
They're arrested, they're detained. But the official reason they were removed from the country is the part I just can't get over. They were escorted out of Uganda for their own safety.
It's a fascinating phrase, isn't it? For their own safety. It completely flips who the aggressor is. If the police are doing the beating and the police are doing the arresting, then who exactly are the journalists being kept safe from?
It sounds like they're being kept safe from the police themselves.
Or, to be a bit more cynical, the state is being kept safe from the journalists' testimony. By calling it a safety measure, it gives them this thin layer of diplomatic cover. They're not deporting a witness, they're rescuing a guest. It just wipes the slate clean. If Yusra isn't in the country, she can't broadcast live from there.
But she's not a stranger to this government, right? I was reading that she actually interviewed President Museveni not that long ago.
She did. She had access to the very top.
So you'd think that would give her some kind of protection. If you sat down with the president, surely you don't get treated like this on the street.
And that's an assumption that trips a lot of people up. Access is great when the government wants its message out. When the president wants to project calm, sure, bring in Sky News. But the second the story changes, the second it becomes about violence and instability, that prior relationship means nothing. In fact, it might even make it worse. From the regime's perspective, it's a betrayal. She went from being their messenger to being a witness to their brutality.
Right. It's a hard line.
Okay.
Let's zoom out a bit from the arrest itself. This violence is all happening in the wake of the 2026 election. For anyone who hasn't been following this closely, can you just set the stage? Who are the main players here?
It really is a battle of two different Ugandas. On one side, you have the incumbent, President Yoweri Museveni. He's 81 years old.
81.
And he's been in power since 1986. I mean, think about that. That's before the Berlin Wall fell, before the commercial internet. He is the state, and he has a deep, deep control over the military.
And his main challenger
is Robert Kyagulanyi, who the world knows as Bobi Wine. He was a huge pop star who became a politician. He leads the National Unity Platform, the NUP.
It's almost too perfect a contrast. The 81-year-old general versus the young pop star.
It's incredibly stark. And because of that, the election became about more than just policy. It was about identity, about generations. Bobi Wine mobilized young voters in Uganda, which is a massive demographic, in a way that clearly terrified the old guard.
But that mobilization obviously didn't result in a peaceful change. The election's over, Museveni is the declared winner, and now this. So where is Bobi Wine now?
He's under house arrest, and it's important to be clear what that means. It's not like he's just stuck at home with an ankle bracelet.
Right, it's not like he just can't go to the store.
No. In this situation, house arrest is a military siege. His home is literally surrounded by soldiers, nobody in, nobody out. Lawyers get blocked, party members get blocked. He is, for all intents and purposes, in a prison that just happens to be his own house.
So the leader of the opposition is completely isolated.
Completely neutralized. He can't lead a rally, he can barely speak to the press, and he certainly can't coordinate a response to what's happening on the streets.
Which brings us to this 2026 Ugandan electoral crackdown report. We've talked about the Sky News crew filming violence, but this report suggests that was just one piece of a much bigger, more systematic plan.
Oh, absolutely. The journalist's arrest is, the tip of the iceberg. What this report details is the massive part of the iceberg that's underwater. What happened to the opposition's actual structure on Election Day?
It specifically mentions the abduction of polling agents. I want to dig into that because it sounds almost low level. Why go after a polling agent?
It sounds low level, but it is an incredibly strategic way to destroy the legal basis for challenging an election.
How does that work?
So in Uganda's system, and in many others, the final vote count at each individual polling station has to be verified. It's done on something called a declaration of results form. And for that form to be valid, it needs to be signed by the election officials and, crucially, by the agents of the candidates who are there watching.
Okay, so the agent is the witness. They sign off to say, yep, I saw the count, this number is correct.
Precisely. Now imagine you're the ruling party and you want to, say, stuff some extra ballots into the box. You can't do that if the opposition's agent is standing right there refusing to sign the form.
So you just get rid of the agent.
You abduct them. The allegation from the NUP is that on Election Day, their agents were either physically chased away from polling stations or just detained by security forces.
So then, when it comes time to count the votes?
The chair for the opposition agent is empty. No one is there to object. So without their signature, or a note of their objection on that form, it becomes almost impossible to challenge that specific result in court later. You can't prove the fraud because your witness was removed.
That's incredibly clever in a very dark way. It's not just brute force, it's procedural. You're sabotaging the paperwork.
That's it, exactly. And the report makes it clear this wasn't just happening here and there. It was a coordinated state clampdown. It targeted the party's whole infrastructure. They even arrested the deputy president for the Western region.
So you cut off the head with house arrests, and you blind the body by getting rid of the local agents.
And this all started weeks before anyone even voted. The report talks about a campaign crackdown where hundreds of supporters, even security details, were locked up. The opposition was already hobbled before the starting gun even went off.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate for a second. The government isn't just admitting to this. They have their own narrative.
They do, and it's important we cover it. Their justification for everything falls under this big banner of maintaining law and order.
That's a pretty wide umbrella.
It's the ultimate umbrella. Every opposition rally is an illegal procession. Every gathering of NUP supporters is potential criminal activity.
But what actually makes a procession illegal?
Usually it's that you didn't get a police permit. But here's the catch-22. If the police systematically refuse to grant permits to the opposition, then by definition, any rally they hold becomes illegal.
So the authorities create the crime by denying the permit, and then they arrest people for committing the crime they just created.
That's the opposition's argument, yes. It lets the state treat any political activity it doesn't like as criminal activity. So when they arrest hundreds of people, the official line isn't, we're arresting political opponents, it's we're arresting criminals who broke the Public Order Management Act. It sounds much better.
Although it seems the international community isn't really buying that excuse this time, based on the statement from the UN Human Rights Office.
Not at all. The UN used the phrase widespread repression and intimidation. That's not the kind of language you use when police are just managing a protest. That's the language you use for a broken election.
There's one more piece of this control puzzle we have to talk about, and it's the one that enables everything else. The internet blackout.
Ah, yes, the digital curtain.
The sources confirm a nationwide internet shutdown on Election Day. We've seen this tactic elsewhere, but explain why it's so Devastatingly effective.
Well, think about the tools an opposition party actually has. They don't have state TV. They don't control the radio. Their number one weapon is the smartphone.
Social media, WhatsApp, things like that.
And things like parallel vote tallying apps. A key part of the opposition strategy is for their agents to take a photo of that declaration of results form we were talking about and instantly upload it to a central server. That way, you have photographic proof of the real result from the ground.
But you can't upload a photo if the internet's off.
You can't upload the photo, you can't live stream video of someone stuffing a ballot box, you can't coordinate with other polling stations. You're completely isolated and in the dark.
So the blackout severs the opposition's ability to communicate with itself.
And it blinds the outside world. And this is what brings us right back to Yusra El-Bagir and Sky News. In that environment, why is a TV crew on the street suddenly so dangerous?
Because if no one else can get information out, they are the only ones left who can.
They're the only ones. If a citizen can't upload a video, the only high-quality evidence of the crackdown is sitting on the memory cards in the cameras of the international press.
So that footage basically becomes a forbidden item.
It becomes a direct threat to the government's entire story. If Sky News airs a video of soldiers beating people and the government is on state TV saying everything is calm and orderly, the whole narrative just collapses, so you have to start them. You arrest the crew, you get the footage, and you get them out of the country.
It's just a total system of control. You silence the local population with the internet shutdown, you silence the international observers by expelling them, and you silence the political leadership with arrests.
It's a siege.
Yeah.
And what it really reveals is a profound sense of insecurity.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a government that's genuinely popular, a leader who truly believes he has the support of the people after nearly 40 years. He doesn't need to shut down the internet. He doesn't need to abduct polling agents. Those are the actions of a regime that knows it's fundamentally vulnerable.
That's a really important way to look at it. The crackdown isn't a demonstration of strength. It's a symptom of fear.
It's a sign that the cost of holding on to power is going up. They have to use more force, more overt tactics, and burn more goodwill with the international community just to stay where they are.
But for the people on the ground, the supporters being beaten in those videos, that vulnerability feels terrifyingly strong.
Oh, absolutely. The regime may be politically fragile, but its security apparatus is extremely robust. And the suffering is very real. The hundreds of people detained are not statistics.
And looking at the dates on these reports, this is all happening right now. This is January 2026. This isn't history.
It's unfolding as we speak. And the big question is always, what comes next? If the opposition is being systematically dismantled and the witnesses are being expelled, does the rest of the world just move on?
That seems to be the bet the government is making, that our attention spans are short.
And unfortunately, that's often a safe bet. The calculation is that if you can just survive the initial bad press for a few weeks, the world will eventually just accept the new reality.
But that's why these moments, like the arrest of a Sky News crew, are so important. It kind of forces everyone to keep looking, at least for a little while longer.
It does. It interrupts that process of normalization. When you see a well-known correspondent in a press vest being hauled away by soldiers, it's a visual shock. It screams that this is not normal.
So if we tie all this together, a disputed election, accusations of fraud, a targeted crackdown, a media blackout, what's the big picture here?
I think the big picture is about the way authoritarianism is evolving. We used to think of a rigged election as just, messy ballot stuffing. But what we're seeing here is a full spectrum approach. It's legal, using the laws. It's digital with the blackout. It's physical with the violence. And it's psychological.
It's like applying the rules of modern warfare to a democratic process.
I think that's right. And it sends a very clear, very chilling message to other movements in the region, which is, we can shut you down, we can shut the world out, and we will still be in power tomorrow morning.
That's a heavy thought.
Yeah.
But it also underscores the incredible courage of the witnesses who do manage to get the story out.
Absolutely. Every video that gets through, every report like this NUP one, every piece to camera from a journalist like Yusra El-Bagir, they're all cracks in that wall of silence.
And for us, listening, our job is just to pay attention to those cracks.
That's it.
We always like to leave you with one final thought to chew on. And for me, this whole time, I keep coming back to that one phrase, for their own safety.
It really sticks with you, doesn't it?
It does. Because it makes you wonder, when a government claims the authority to decide who is safe, and when that safety looks identical to being silenced and removed, who is actually left to tell you what the truth is?
And if the only way to be safe is to be silent, what does that say about the price of telling the truth in 2026?
A question we should all be asking. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the ongoing crisis in Uganda. It's a story that is far from over.
Indeed.
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.